Welcome back. Good to see you. And it is time for Prime.
Today is a very sad day in the city of Memphis.
A heartbreaking discovery in the search for a missing mom abducted while out for a run, revealing a disturbing trend in the Memphis area that has many on high alert. Shipping containers used to fill gaps in the southern border wall. But new numbers show it is not working like some thought it would. New COVID-19 boosters are on the way, but how do you get one? And how many more might you need? A man threatens to fly a stolen plane into a Walmart.
He was low enough you could see the windows.
Where he got the plane and how he flew it without any experience. Plus, the Foo Fighters honor the life of drummer Taylor Hawkins.
Mr. Shane Hawkins on the drums.
With the help of his 16-year-old son. NewsNation Prime starts right now.
Live from NewsNation headquarters, this is NewsNation Prime with Marni Hughes.
And good evening to you. I'm Marni Hughes. We begin tonight with the outcome that no one wanted in the search for Eliza Fletcher. She's a mom, a wife, a teacher, forced into an SUV on Friday while out for her early morning run. On day 4 of the search, investigators found Liza's body near an abandoned home in Memphis. Her cause of death tonight has not been released. Her remains discovered not far from the apartments where police say her attacker came and cleaned that SUV after he is accused of abducting and killing Liza. That moment also captured on new video tonight of him cleaning the SUV, released by authorities. Cleotha Abston is behind bars, now charged with first-degree murder. Police believe this attack was random, and what happened to Liza is becoming more and more horrific as we learn more details. It's also raising some concerns tonight in a city that has seen a lot of violence, especially kidnappings in recent years. So we're going to get into that tonight. Our team is standing by as we take a closer look at this specific case and also crime as a whole in Memphis and what many of us did this weekend if we were out looking over our shoulder, thinking, what would we do? We're going to start with correspondent Marky Martin tonight, live with what police are sharing about this case and Liza's murder. Marky.
Marni, after 4 days of searching, investigators finally locating and identifying the body of Eliza Fletcher, the mother and teacher violently abducted during her Friday morning jog. And now her alleged killer, a repeat offender, now behind bars once again.
Today is a very sad day in the city of Memphis.
Tennessee authorities announcing new details in the disappearance of Eliza Fletcher. Following an intensive 4-day search, the 34-year-old's body was found in the back of a vacant duplex apartment 8 miles from where she went missing.
Further forensic investigation by the MPD traffic unit positively identified the body was, in fact, Eliza Fletcher.
Her alleged kidnapper and killer, 38-year-old Cleotha Abston, who now faces multiple charges, including first-degree murder. Surveillance images show the abductor waiting in this black SUV. When Fletcher passes by on her Friday morning jog, he aggressively runs toward her and forces her into the car. According to police records, Abston's DNA was found on a pair of shoes left at the scene, which were found alongside Fletcher's cell phone.
We have no reason to think this was anything other than an isolated attack by a stranger.
In brand new surveillance video, Abston can be seen cleaning his car hours after the abduction. According to the affidavit, officers were able to locate Fletcher after noticing tire tracks in grass on the street she was found. Investigators also smelled the odor of decay, leading them to her body. Her purple running shorts found in a trash bag 100 feet from the scene. Abston appearing in front of a judge today, but he's no stranger to the law. His criminal record dates back to just 12 years old, with charges including aggravated assault with a weapon and rape. At 16, he kidnapped a Memphis prosecutor at gunpoint, a crime he spent 20 of a 24-year sentence behind bars for.
Unfortunately, that time was not long enough. and he was given the opportunity to kill.
Alex Del Carmen is a criminology expert. We asked him how a repeat offender like Abston was allowed back on the streets.
We in society say, well, gee, throw the key, away and put him in prison forever. And of course, hindsight is 20/20, but that judge is restrained to whatever parameters the law gives that judge at the time of sentencing.
Fletcher's family releasing this statement today. We are heartbroken and devastated by this senseless loss. Liza was such a joy to so many. Her family, friends, colleagues, students, parents, members of her Second Presbyterian Church congregation, and everyone who knew her.
Before we go, I wanted to remind you.
The kindergarten teacher being remembered by the students and school she leaves behind as a light who embodied this song.
With me, we're going to sing This Little Light of Mine, okay? Ready? This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine.
And Marni Fletcher's family also asking of the public, the media at this time, for privacy and respect as they grieve. And as you mentioned right off the top, the manner of Fletcher's death has still not been revealed at this time. Marni.
Thinking about that family tonight, what a beautiful person, and seeing that video of her is just so heartbreaking. Marky, tell us a little bit more about the court appearance of this suspect today. I know there was a lot of attention focused on that, and who else was in the courtroom?
Yeah, we watched as Abston was led into that courtroom in handcuffs and a mask. He stood in front of that judge as the judge read off his charges. Today, he really tackled aggravated kidnapping and some other misdemeanors, stolen property, use of somebody else's credit card. His bond was set at $510,000. We then watched as he raised his hand, swore under oath that all the information he has given to police in his affidavits, that all that information has been accurate. He also notified the courts he could not make bond, he could not afford a lawyer at this time, so he will be given a court-appointed attorney. And Marni, we do expect him to be back in court tomorrow to be arraigned over some of the more serious charges like first-degree murder. We can also confirm Fletcher's family was in court today as he was there.
To face
Marni.
him. All right, Marky, thank you. This case has gained national attention, and it also has put Memphis in the spotlight because although police say what happened to Liza was random, it was a stranger, the city has battled some high crime rates since the early 2000s. And up until last year, Memphis ranked #1 as the most dangerous city for violent crimes. Correspondent Paul Gerke joining us live tonight with those details and also what is being done, Paul, to address crime there.
Marni, like in many major cities, crime is a growing problem in Memphis. You just mentioned in the statistic they were #1 for a long time. By the latest metrics, they're #2, not much better. Violent crime there is more than 500% the national average. The city and state are employing a variety of tactics to try to change that, but so far, not much is working.
Memphis has a crime problem, and heiress Eliza Fletcher's abduction is drawing attention to an alarming trend. This year alone, there have been no fewer than 100 kidnappings in Memphis. Fortunately, few have ended the same as Fletcher's case. But the gruesome reality of finding the junior kindergarten teacher's body yesterday did not sit well with local residents.
It's traumatizing, especially for, South Memphis already known to be, a bad area, but to have these.
Other kidnappings, just as brazen, have taken place without garnering the national headlines that Fletcher has. Last week, a mother and her 1-year-old were taken by 2 men spotted on Target surveillance cameras. They were forced to withdraw $800 from an ATM before they were released. One man was arrested today, the other is still at large. And last week, a father stopping to help a man involved in an accident was carjacked with his 2-, 5-, and 6-year-olds still inside. The kids were let out a few blocks away, but that suspect is still on the run. Earlier this year, Memphis Mayor Jim Strickland pledged to attack violent crime.
We're trying to get stiffer penalties for violent crime so people who shoot guns in houses and cars don't walk away without any prison time. It takes all these things. We need the county's help, we need the state's help, we need parents' help.
Strickland is also trying to hire hundreds of police officers using incentives.
We've just got to have a sense of urgency to address it and try to drive those numbers down.
Meanwhile, a debate rages on social media regarding access to crime-fighting tools. Some point out that black victims rarely receive the attention a white school teacher has. For example, 3 years ago, 41-year-old Memphis nurse Tequila Hayes went missing. Her husband has been charged with second-degree murder, but Hayes has never been found.
Marni, to put some of those crime statistics into perspective, there's a 1 in 12 chance that if you live in Memphis, you'll become the victim of a violent or a property crime. And through June of this year, no city in the country had as much violent crime per 1,000 citizens as Memphis, Tennessee.
All right. Thank you, Paul. I want to bring in Suzanne Johnson now. She's a former FBI agent. She left the agency to become an advocate for victims of human trafficking. Suzanne, you hear those numbers. Violent crime is not unique to just Memphis. We're seeing it in so many of our cities. But, I myself was looking over my shoulder this weekend when I was out and about. A case like this does draw a lot of attention. How often, according to police, do these random, isolated attacks by a stranger, like the case that we've seen with Liza, happen?
Yeah, I would say those are not the norm. And so we need to be really careful not to base our own behavior and the way that we look for danger and the way we protect ourselves and our families. We need to be very careful not to base our decisions based on those instances alone that do tend to make the headlines. We need to be aware of what's happening in our environment, maybe switch up our routine and have some tools. But more likely, more often, it's the latter instance that was described, where it's somebody who is in relationship with the victim who is the offender.
I'm curious, in your background and some of the cases that you've covered, when you do finally apprehend a predator, in this case, this man in Memphis, is it something that's premeditated or is it a crime of opportunity? Kind of walk us through the mindset once you have these people in the room and you interview them and start to learn more about their decision making.
Well, you've highlighted three particular instances there in Memphis. And when I look at those, I don't see quite the same fact pattern. So I would expect to probably hear something different in the interview room. In the first instance with Eliza, I would expect probably there was some sort of premeditation there. With the two instances following that, I would think those were probably fear-based crimes of opportunity. I can't say for certain. Fear-based decisions are dangerous decisions. So we will see folks get themselves into places they shouldn't be. Offenders, and it's ironic, both predators and parents can make fear-based decisions that make situations worse, not better. As a parent, I want to protect my children and keep them away from all danger, but we know we can't do that we do need to let safe people and safe influences into their lives so that they can help be on guard and watch for those unhealthy relationships, which so often are the basis for the abductions that I would see and that I would work. But going back to those other two Memphis instances, I think you probably had a couple of guys who were in desperate circumstances and made a decision instantly based on the opportunity that they saw in front of them. And we have seen instances where a vehicle is taken and the offender doesn't even realize that there are children in the car and suddenly finds himself in a predicament that he doesn't know what to do with. So in this particular case, I'm happy that those obviously always happy when the children are recovered and that at least to some degree, that person who's made that irrational decision has come to some degree of their senses.
Mm-hmm. We covered this case on Friday. As soon as we heard that Liza had been abducted, police came right out, were very forthcoming with the information they had at the time. We knew very little on Friday night, but following it through the weekend, it continued to gain traction nationally. It became a really big story. And we often get asked, why do some stories grab such big headlines and others, these other cases in Memphis, which were also violent abductions, don't rise to the level of getting coverage? Why is that, investigative-wise, and just as you watch nationally some of the trends that we're seeing that happen?
Well, for one, sadly, volume. There is so much criminal activity that is happening. I wish every one of my cases could have been in the news, because the ones that hit the headlines were resolved much more quickly because folks knew that we needed information on those. But they cannot all hit the headlines, and both the police and the media do have to prioritize what gets in front of people. It's also just how apparent it is on the surface that it was an abduction. An offender, a kidnapper, isn't very smart to just straight up abduct someone. It's much smarter from their perspective to be devious and manipulative about it and make it look like something else. And that's why those instances so often don't hit the headlines.
Right. And in this case, the images of her abduction and the violent attack were made
It was available.
It was available, and it was clearly communicated to the media very quickly. Just a horrific case. Suzanne, as always, we appreciate you coming on. There's a lot that we can all learn, and that family tonight, obviously, in our thoughts and prayers. Appreciate your time.